Welcome to the QB Chronicles, an SMU Football Podcast with Garrett Gilbert and Kyle Padron. Join former SMU quarterbacks Garrett and Kyle as they break down each week's game, offering insights from their own experiences on the field. In addition to game analysis, we'll also bring you special episodes featuring interviews with past and present SMU players, sharing their stories and perspectives. Whether you're a diehard Mustang fan or just love football, this podcast is your go-to source for all things SMU football. Pony up!
Welcome back to the QB Chronicles. I'm Kyle Padron, joined by my good buddy and football legend, Garrett Gilbert, who may or may not be surrounded by 35 bottles of bourbon, whether that's restocking the cabinets in the back or following the result this past Saturday. I'm not sure, but he's got 35 bottles of bourbon around him anyway.
A lot of half-drank bottles around here. I'll let you guys decide, figure out when they were taken care of. KP, how we doing?
We are doing okay. A little bittersweet on Saturday for me, obviously. For you, me, and the listeners, tough way to lose a football game in a shootout like that. 48-45, our ponies lost to the Baylor Bears, which knocked us out of the top 25. But silver lining for me, I got to take my daughter to her first Boulevard and first game, and she had an absolute ball. She was screaming, "Wrap them up," for about 3.5 hours, whether we were on offense or defense.
Well, that's good advice.
Yeah, my wife, that was one of her favorite things to say, and then Olivia adopted that saying for most of the game. But
that's good. That's really good advice.
Yeah. We played tackle this evening, and she was saying, "Wrap them up." So we're building a solid foundation of fundamentals in our house.
Well, if you don't start with the fundamentals, what else do you have?
Exactly. But no, it's doing well. Obviously, disappointed in the results. I think we'll get into it. A lot of great things, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, and a lot of confidence gained, I imagine, from what the performance our offense put out there on Saturday for most of the game. And then obviously a lot to improve upon on the defensive side of the ball. Again, did some good things in short spurts, but ultimately, we found it to be difficult to get off the field, and would love to get your take and what you saw in the game.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, anytime you give up 600 yards on offense, it's going to be tough to win the ball game. It didn't really feel like Baylor outgained us by 150 yards. But it was a tough one to swallow, honestly. I mean, I was actually, I was telling you before we came on air, I was on my way to San Angelo, Texas to go watch my brother-in-law, who is the offensive coordinator at Angelo State. They got a big 41-20 win on Saturday evening. So I was watching on my phone, but what my thoughts were this. You pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Number one, the offense played well. 458 yards is a good day. Obviously, we had a few big plays, which those one play drives seems like they continue to come, and that's how you win ball games, is finding explosive plays. So that part was encouraging. And I thought overall Kevin played pretty well. Does hurt to be out Jordan Hudson. It feels like, Brenton is kind of the only guy that we got right now that's, finding space. Although, we did have some success throwing the ball to Jalen Cooper, who had, some explosive plays, but it does feel like we're missing Jordan Hudson. So, and I would also love to see RJ Maryland get back involved some more. I know he's kind of being eased back in, but that's kind of my thoughts on offense. The other part of that is we ran it for 163 yards, averaged 3.7 a carry, which is exactly what Baylor averaged. And I really thought we did a good job against the run. I was going to start with the positives on the defense. I actually texted my work group has a couple Baylor fans, so there was a little bit of jabbing going on in the game. And I actually texted my work group midway through the second quarter, and I was like, I really hope Baylor continues trying to establish the run, because otherwise SMU's in trouble. And when they finally realized that they didn't have to run the ball, we had some problems on defense. Yep. And I think it starts with the pass rush. Honestly, I think, the past 2 years we've done a heck of a job getting a ton of sacks. I think close to leading the nation 2 years ago, and maybe the same last year, 40 plus sacks or something like that. Really good numbers. I'm just throwing out there, but Baylor, Sawyer Robertson, which a lot of credit to him, he had all day to throw. And when you have that long to throw, doesn't matter if you're playing man or zone, you're going to find somebody open. And he was able to continue to do that on every single rep. And they threw it 50 times. And they threw it for, whatever it was, 450 yards. And so that was hard on our defense. And, I think the secondary certainly deserves a little bit of blame there, but when you got to cover for 5-6 seconds, it's really hard to it's really hard to do that from a defensive back's perspective. So I think going forward, the biggest thing is we've got pressure, and we've had a really good defensive line the past few years, and I think that we have some good players. It's just a matter of getting to the quarterback.
Yeah. Before the season at our luncheon, I thought about this after the game, but Lashley made a comment to you and me prior to the luncheon of, we've got to see with all the new faces how these guys respond to adversity. And, first game didn't have a whole lot, but this was a game where we did have adversity, throughout the game. And I thought for the most part, the guys responded well. Obviously, the fourth quarter was, challenging, 14-point lead with 8 minutes left. Defense, again, couldn't get off the field. But I'm curious to see, after getting hit in the mouth and losing the way that we did, how they respond this week. But I thought for the most part, I was just kind of thinking about his comment before the season. I was impressed for really 3.5 quarters of, these guys are, going blow for blow with the Big 12 team. And I felt, we said this at the Clemson game too. I thought we were the better team. We probably, play those guys a handful of times. We win most of the time. And I think we are the better football team. Just, defensively, we had a hard time. And I'm curious your thoughts on, with the one-play drives, the quick drives we have, how much of an impact does that have on a defense who, Baylor, most of their scoring drives were sustained drives where they're marching down the field, and then our guys on the field for several minutes at a time. Offense comes on, one play, 75-yard touchdown, they're back out there again. What's the impact on the defense?
Baylor ran 94 plays, and we ran 66 plays.
Yeah.
And you never are going to complain about one play touchdown drives.
Right.
That's never going to be a negative. What we had to be able to sort of counteract that, explosiveness on offense the past couple of years was a great pass rush. So we'd get ahead, we'd score fast, we'd score a lot, and then we had this pass rush that could keep us ahead. And we thought, about 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I kind of knew the scoring wasn't done, but I was sort of hoping that my prediction was going to hold true. I had, we had it to 38-24. And then, Baylor goes down the field, but they go down the field slowly, just like you said. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, as long as we make them take 6 minutes here, everything's going to be okay. Cause then we got to get one first down and then the game's over. Well, they get to about the 50-yard line and throw it up to that number 34, who ended up being a total menace for our defense. And they get 50 yards in one chunk after taking 2.5 minutes to get to midfield. So playing good situational football is really the key to me there. Like, no big plays and tackle well, and you're really doing your job as the defense. It's kind of like you just kind of want to die slowly there. You're okay as long as just keep the ball in front of you. And I thought, and again, I think this is probably a good learning experience. Those guys have to be in that position. Those guys have to be in that position and know how to deal with it. And we have a lot of young guys playing in the secondary. And so, I think that's something that they can learn from. And again, if you look back to last year, different but the same. Last year we sneak out with a win against Nevada, and then dominate Houston Christian, and then play a game at home and really struggle. Struggle against BYU. Now, the order of games is different here, but the offense really struggled last year. The defense really struggled the other day. Everything that SMU wants and needs, and all their goals are still right in front of them. That's the beauty of the 12-team playoff. The 4-team playoff, you lost a game, especially if you weren't in the Big Ten or the SEC, and you were kind of like, the wind's out of our sails. So, as negative as I'm being and as we can be about, the performance. I think we were just the same way last year after the BYU game. And the truth of the matter is every single thing is still out in front of them as long as they learn from their mistakes in this game. And I think, you take the positives away. Good against the run. Good on offense. Really, honestly, 3.7 yards per carry is not great, but it's solid enough against probably a pretty good front. So how do you continue to build on those positives? And I think that's how SMU moves on from this game is look at the positives and say, okay, we're 1-1, but that's not an ACC team. We can still get to the ACC championship game. So, how do you learn from this game?
Yeah. I expect that the teaching tape is not as fun this week coming off a loss. I know we mentioned that last week. A lot of things to learn from when you win is more fun, but there's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things we can learn from this week. To our listeners, real quick, if you've made it this far, thank you. We would encourage you all to go to Roback, enter the code PONY20 and get 20% off your first order. We'd love for you guys to represent Roback and wear that on the boulevard into our next game.
I got I saw the Mitch, shout out to Mitchell Brown, who, makes this whole thing tick. He sent a picture of a sweet looking SMU hoodie. So I may go snag one myself once we get done here tonight.
Love it. Let's talk about Kevin. I thought, again, you touched on it earlier a little bit, but I thought he played a pretty efficient game, 16 of 22, 295, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did you see the interception?
I did. Yeah, I did. I did. Go ahead and finish, and then I'll
I was going to say,
I thought that was a pretty key sequence in the game.
Yeah, so comes off that turnover, the special teams turnover, and, we're kind of in the red zone, have a good opportunity to score, big momentum shift. And, I'm curious, the ball placement, I don't think it was terrible, but it needs to be high and away, let RJ go up and get it. Part of RJ coming back and getting that confidence, I think that would have been a huge play for him. Would love to see him be more aggressive there and go after that ball a little bit more. I felt like the DB really just wanted it more. But I thought that was, a big play where, I think we ended up getting a stop and going to score anyway to, make it back to 38-24. But
yeah,
I just felt like that was such a huge momentum shift to where if we go immediately score, emotion plays a big part in this game. And, if they don't get that stop, get their crowd back engaged, I felt like that was going to be a huge turning point in the game. But overall, I thought Kevin did some great things. I love the way that he extends the play. And I know it backfired on one play specifically. Really not his fault, but he runs into the referee. Referee doesn't do a good job getting out of the way. And I thought the awareness that Kevin showed just shows you how mature he is at the position, how slow the game is for him and what he sees, but did a good job of recovering the ball, getting his knee off the ground. But ultimately would love to see him, not make a bad play worse. Just throw that ball into the dirt. Let's get back into 2nd and 10 as opposed to getting a 2nd and 16.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, again, this is all – we're looking at this with the benefit of hindsight, right? Like he's playing
Absolutely.
in the game. He's out there. He goes out and what follows after that play is we miss a 57-yard field goal, right?
Yep.
And we have a great kicker. We have a weapon. We're in field goal range and we have points. And then we take ourselves out of field goal range. And, Colin is a very reliable kicker. Obviously, we missed a couple the other day, but, they were long kicks. And, excuse me. And so, I think with the benefit of hindsight, you can say, sure, he's trying to make a play and we'd like to throw that away. And that's something he can learn from. When are you going to turn around and think that there's a referee behind you? Eyes are downfield. That one I almost kind of just say, that one you can kind of chalk up to just bad luck, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
The interception, while we did get a 3-and-out right after the interception and then go down and score and take, get that lead to 38-24. I think that play, along with the 3rd down play in the 2nd overtime before we missed our field goal in double overtime, another ball to RJ that Baylor brought pressure up the middle, and we have a little slot fade, and miss the throw inside, and RJ has to go over the top of the DB to try to make the play. Both of those were the same thing. If we get that ball high and away and throw it towards the pylon, I always try to talk about, like, on those types of throws, your guy is outside, right? So we always want to miss towards the sideline, out away from the middle of the field, because that's where your guy can get to and the DB can't. And RJ does a great job using his body. We saw it time and time again last year. And so and again, that's more reps, getting RJ back, because that was his security blanket last year, not only his security blanket, but our biggest playmaker. So if we can get back to that point where we're throwing those balls, and they're 50-50 balls, but they're really 60-40 or 70-30 balls, because we're throwing it up to our best player and we're putting it in the spot that only he can get it. Now, you're looking at a different game. RJ catches those pass. RJ catches that pass. Maybe we still get the 3 and out after the punt, and we have the ball with a chance to go up 21 instead of only to go up 14. All of this is like, a ton of what ifs, but I'm just saying, those are big momentum swinging plays in the game. And so overall, again, I thought he was very good. I thought he was very efficient. But we have, we are in fact quarterbacks, so we have the highest standards for our quarterbacks here. Yep.
Another bright spot for us, and curious who your player of the game is, but the TJ Harden coming out party. Kid had a big day, 19 carries for 115 yards, 3 TDs, obviously the long 40-yard touchdown run. But I think we have a pretty exciting backfield. CJ did some good things. He's still crazy shifty. Didn't get as loose as he did in East Texas A&M, but I think we've got some good backs, and hopefully they'll continue to grow, and excited for the progress there. And another great game for Jalen Cooper, you touched on earlier. He had 2 for 89. Obviously, the big chunk was that 75-yard touchdown, which will be my Padron shot of the game.
As it should be.
Yep, KJ rolling out. That was one of the responses that I was talking about earlier, where Baylor makes it a one-possession game, kind of approaching into the first half. I felt that we needed a big response. I wasn't expecting it to be one play, but Kevin does what he does, gets outside the pocket and extends the play, and then throws a perfect ball to Jalen, and Jalen made a fantastic catch and stride over the shoulder. It's kind of a picture perfect, teaching.
Yeah,
tape.
That was a heck of a catch. He tracked the ball all the way over.
Yeah.
I agree.
It looks smooth and
good.
Big play.
I don't have any Padron sitting over here, but I think that was that's a worthy. I think
that's a worthy.
One.
You gotta get rid of some of that.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe not straight out of the bottle though.
Kylie might be.
I think that's great. I think that's worthy, and I do agree. TJ Harden's game was extremely encouraging. I think you look at those two guys, and I feel like there's a little bit of a kind of a thunder and lightning type, backfield going there with him and Chris and CJ 2K Jr. So that was encouraging to see from those guys. I'm just kind of thinking back on some more of the key plays from the game. I would say probably my MVP is Romello again. He just continues to show up, caught 2 touchdowns in the biggest moments. I would like to see him have more than 4 receptions, continue to show up on an every down basis. He had the long catch for the touchdown, and then, only 2 catches until his touchdown catch in overtime, which was another amazing catch. I thought that might have been a good candidate for Padron shot of the game as well. But
it was in consideration.
I'm going to go with Romello for my MVP. That being said, we got to quit with the 15-yard penalties. Fortunately, we scored on this one, but just using the ball as a gun, probably not a good idea in general. I know I'm old, and I'm not.
The old curmudgeon. It comes back.
Yeah, I am a curmudgeon. I know. I didn't want to use that word, but you're right. I am, and I just don't know if that's the best idea in general. That being said, he's the MVP. I think he proved himself to be the star on this receiving crew over the first 2 weeks.
Agreed. Yeah, and just the discipline of the game, I think we were fortunate enough to not have multiple unsportsmanlike conducts. There was one that the officials missed on the Baylor sideline where one of our DBs literally stood over the Baylor kid. I mean, he hit him extremely hard, and it was well warranted from that perspective. But you've just got to be more disciplined and move on to the next snap, because 96 snaps. You dominated that guy for one play. You got 95 more, man. So
totally agree. Let's
move on to the next snap, and we've got to be more disciplined going forward. And I assume that was a teaching point, hopefully addressed in front of the entire team and not just the secondary and receiver rooms. But
on the positive note, we cut our penalties in half from whatever it was down to 6. And so, that's we'll call it a small victory, but like, some of those penalties are avoidable, and they just, there's no place for them. Again, not to sound like, an old guy, but like, there's just no place for them, because all it does is kill the team.
Yeah.
So
it's an emotional game. Play with great emotion.
You want the guys to play with emotion. You want them to play through the whistle, but then like go back to the huddle and get ready for the next play. Because frankly, if you're using that play as an example, and not to continue to rag on the defense, because they have been fantastic for the past 2 years, but like, Baylor's gained 600 yards on you. So there's not a ton of talking that needs to be done after the plays. Yeah.
Yep. Real quick before we move on to kind of what happened across the country and looking ahead to week 3, just kind of situational football. I'm curious your perspective on the second overtime drive. It was my feeling that I didn't think we were going to stop Baylor because we hadn't stopped them in the last 3 or 4 possessions. So was assuming they would score a touchdown. Obviously, we're all hoping that they don't. But kicking a field goal in that situation, you got a 2nd and 6, dial up, you get pressure, throw it out to RJ. I don't mind that play. I really don't. But I just felt that was a 4-down drive, 4-down territory.
Yeah.
Let's get, 2 or 3 on 3rd down. But TJ, offensively we're averaging 3.7. Let's get it to 4th and 2, 4th and 3, and let's see where we shake up. And part of that, to Rhett's credit, Kevin got hurt on the 2nd down play. It looked like he rolled up his ankle. And so maybe that handcuffs your play calling a little bit. And I'm sure that's probably in consideration. But
very true.
I was just thinking that seemed like a 4-down situation to me. Like, we've got to go get 6 here. And if it comes down to 2-point conversion, so be it. But we've got to get 6 and see if we can knock Baylor off here. But curious your perspective.
I completely agree. I think in most traditional scenarios, you'd say you don't get it, you kick the field goal. But like you are correct. The pace of that game dictated that. Unfortunately, we were going to have a hard time stopping Baylor on offense. They kind of were able to do whatever they wanted. So that being said, you approach that sort of set of downs a little bit differently if you've got 4 plays, and maybe that does involve still throwing one up on 3rd and 6. But understanding that you have the 4th down play to get it, and maybe the idea is we always talk about in 3rd and long, not necessarily 3rd and 6, but get half. And so you can be a little more conservative there. That being said, that being said, two more quick thoughts. That being said, the defense still has to do their job, but I would love, I think, we talked a lot about TJ's performance and how he ran the ball, and I think he did a great job. And I think he needs to continue to get the ball in short yardage situations. I sort of thought when we're up 38-31 that I would have loved to have seen TJ and Kevin run some sort of zone read on 3rd down and just keep the ball in those 2 guys' hands instead of trying to throw for it. And I get it. Kevin is dynamic with his legs when he has run pass option, but design quarterbacks run are great in that situation because they give you the extra blocker. And I'm certainly not saying every time, but Kevin did a good job taking a sack there and not, stopping the clock in an ideal situation. But I would love to see those guys with the ball in their hands and the chance to go make a play, unless you've got a pass that you just love. And we're not going to throw a ball into, we're not going to just, take a sack or throw a ball into 50-50 coverage. So that would be my thoughts on situationally, just specific to that game. So I think that's a really good question, KP.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up our Baylor take, unless you have anything else to add, but,
no, I'm good. I think it's time to move on. Let's go get a big win. We'll talk more about next week's game on our Pat and Go episode. But let's move on and take a little trip around college football.
Yep. Ponies go to Missouri State, playing Springfield, Missouri next week at 2:30. Looking around. Several ranked matchups, a couple of good ones. Georgia, number 6, travels to Knoxville, take on number 15, Tennessee. I believe game day is going to be there. South Florida, newly ranked after a big win this past weekend over Florida. They'll take on number 5, Miami. So be curious to see They've been playing some ball, but they go to Miami to take on the Canes. Recently bounced from the top 25 Florida. They'll go to LSU, number 3. Number 16 Texas A&M goes up to number 8 Notre Dame. And then one that I'm interested in could get Vandy ranked after this weekend if they pull it out again, but they go to Columbia, South Carolina, take on the number 11 Gamecocks.
A big weekend in the SEC. It looks like that's a lot of fun games. I'm tentatively excited about South Florida, and I kind of want to like hop on the South Florida plus 18.5 train. But as I've said numerous times, do not take gambling advice from me because I bet with my heart and I lose all the time. So that's probably not the best idea. That Carson Beck, I'm sure, will blow those guys out. But I have been excited watching that South Florida team play because I think Byron Brown's really talented, and they earned a well-deserved, hard-fought victory against Florida last week.
Yep.
Speaking of last week, not a ton of ranked matchups as we talked about. Oregon rolled Oklahoma State, and I think Mike Gundy is squarely on the hot seat. Mm-hmm. Texas, they had a convincing second quarter, but continued to struggle a little bit on offense. I actually saw some clips of Arch kind of wincing while he was throwing, which I thought was very interesting. I'm curious.
Did you
and
see
I also saw
answer?
Sark's commentary, which I felt like just threw more fuel on the fire. I'm not quite sure about that one. Clemson eked by Troy. Not, another guy who might be on the hot seat is Davo Swinney. And then in the game of the night, Oklahoma was pretty much dominant against Michigan. And I think John Mateer's got a lot of he's got a lot of eyes on him now as far as, what he's done in the first 2 weeks. And I think, maybe well-deserved. He's been pretty impressive. I didn't get to watch a ton of that game, but he's been pretty impressive. Just, he runs well. He's got a really quick whip-like release and throws the ball pretty accurately.
Yeah, after week 2, he's my Heisman favorite. I think
I like
the performance he put out, what he does with his legs. I think he throws a beautiful ball. He's got the mid-range game, does a great deep ball. And I think Venables actually has a squad here. They've got some good playmakers on the outside. I think Mateer's an absolute stud, and it seems like the defense is finally coming around for him. So I'll be excited to see what the Sooners can do the rest of the way. They've got the gauntlet of the SEC coming up here in a couple of weeks, but after week 2, I think John Mateer is my clear front runner for the Heisman.
I'm not mad at that pick.
Also, shout out to Bill Belichick, first college win.
Yeah, he got his first college win, 20-3 over the juggernaut University of Charlotte.
Congrats, Bill.
Yep. All right, one more time. Row back. Use the code PONY20 for 20% off your first order. I think that's all I got for tonight.
Love it. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back with a Pat and Go preview for SMU Missouri State later this week. Pony up.
Love it.